Today, my colleague and I were going to talk a little bit more about mobile license plate recognition technology and how it's transforming the parking enforcement and inventory world worldwide. Of course, my colleague Mauricio Ochoa is right here. So first and foremost, what I really wanted to talk about is just the agenda for today. So the agenda today is that I'm going to talk about a little bit more about what mobile LPR is, the different types of systems there are, different types of integrations, etc. Then we'll talk a little bit more about the parking enforcement world. We'll move over to the inventory world, and then from there we'll talk about the future of mobile LPR and what success actually looks like when using mobile LPR. When you're using mobile LPR, really the first thing that you have to do is that you have to have the operations and the efficiency just to be much faster than the manual patrol. That's the first thing that we always have to look at when we're looking at mobile LPR. The issue that we're facing today is that parking operators have a lot of limited staff. They're expected to continue to have more patrols without having more resources. They're expected to just do manual license plate collection over and over and over again, and expected to improve their utilization, their usage studies, and also just improve enforcement as a whole. But the issue is that they're not given these resources in order to really accomplish this. So the question is, how exactly are we going to fix this challenge? Well, a practical solution has become mobile license plate recognition technology, allowing these parking operators to move away from the manual patrol and do things in a much more efficient manner. So mobile LPR is really as simply as having a license plate camera on a moving platform. Essentially, as the moving platform drives, it gets a license plate, it gets a time, it gets a location. Depending on the system that you're using, it could have additional metadata such as make, model, and color recognition. Really, the most important thing here is wide coverage, repeat observation, and operational efficiency. Now I'm going to talk about the three main types of mobile LPR systems. So we have the legacy mobile LPR. Really, you have your cameras, your processor, your computer. But really, the main issue here is that the patroller is supposed to upload the list into the vehicle before every single patrol. That makes the data static. So what if I go out and I park and I pay for parking 1 hour after? When that mobile LPR system reads my license plate, it's going to detect a violation, when in reality, I do have a valid session. Now that we're going to look at the more modern vehicle, it's more cloud-based. Really, the main thing that we're looking at here, instead of uploading a static list, that the mobile LPR solution is actually integrated with all of these different types of platforms, whether it's your payment platforms, reservations, etc. Every single time you get a scan, we scan that, we query that database in real time, allowing the operators to have a lot more confidence about the hits and the reads that they're getting. And now something that's a little bit newer and everyone really wants to use it is handheld enforcement. Handheld enforcement is you're really removing the mobile LPR camera as a whole and you're just using your cell phone or a tablet. It's really great for really small spaces when you can't really use a vehicle, because if you're going to put a citation on a car in the middle of the street, you're just going to create congestion. The issue with handheld enforcement is that the device is not made for mobile LPR. It is just an actual cell phone. The processing power inside a cell phone is not one that's built for mobile LPR purposes either. And it struggles a lot in low light conditions. It doesn't have IR technology or white light at all. So if you don't have an ambient environment with a lot of lighting, you're going to have a lot of issues there. So this slide I just really wanted to talk about is how mobile LPR has really evolved in terms of a hardware perspective. Not only do you have to use a car, you can use a Segway, a golf cart, bicycle, etc. Mobile LPR has evolved a lot to allow all of these operators to use the actual resources that they have today in order to improve their efficiencies without having to purchase a brand new vehicle just to do this. Today we're going to talk about two different types of mobile LPR use cases. The first one is inventory and studies. Inventory and studies is primarily used by airports or large parking facilities or even consultants as well. It's really understanding the usage insights. It's not about giving citations at all. Airports use it to identify abandoned vehicles, scofflaws, or lost ticket fraud as well. The parking enforcement world is really more about the citations themselves, or there's other types of enforcement such as towing, etc. But it does include more integration than you would see in the inventory world, because we have to be querying these payment platforms in real time, the meters, etc. It's not about enforcement, it's not about inventory, it's really just about process. On foot patrol, you can see that it takes 3 minutes per car. Out of 700, after 750 cars, that's 37.5 hours. 5 full work days. Now you have a mobile LPR unit, which reads 15 seconds per car, 750 cars. That's just 187.5 minutes, just over 3 hours. Operational efficiency right there. That is the start to mobile LPR. That is how you're able to scale it. If you add in mobile LPR system and you're not doing the process or the license plate capture more efficiently, you're not going to have a successful implementation. What I wanted to show here is on foot patrols takes minute per car, mobile LPR takes seconds per car. Now let's talk a little bit more about inventory. So the traditional inventory process is very inefficient. Imagine yourself being a parking operator, walking through garages, just writing down license plate after license plate after license plate. It's very slow, it's very inefficient. The fact that it's very slow, you're not gonna be able to do as many inventory rounds as you'd like. You're gonna have a lot of blind spots throughout the day. Human error will come into the picture. I mean, one of the main reasons why LPR was even introduced in the first place is because of manual error. Imagine you yourself reading 500 license plates in one day. I think myself, I'd go crazy a little bit. And of course, inefficient resource use. Let's say that you have 15 patrollers walking around. I'm sure there's different types of aspects in your airports that require more staff because more manual intervention is required. Mobile LPR for the inventory can be something that can be a lot more automated. So it can allow you to grab those enforcement officers and bring them over to something that requires them more, rather than something that we already have solutions for. And at the end of the day, limited integration. Once you collect the data, how is it communicating with all the other data you have in place? For example, fixed cameras at airports. You have a fixed camera at the entry, you have a fixed camera at the exit. There's one thing about lost ticket fraud. Someone comes in, they say, I lost my ticket, and they say, hey, you've been here for 7 days. With a mobile LPR system, you can have the evidence and say, not only did I capture you at the entrance, but I also captured you every single time afterwards. And obviously at the exit as well. If you have two different systems with limited integration, you're gonna create a very, very inefficient process. You're not gonna be able to enforce this as you like. Some of the key benefits I've explained before, you don't need that much infrastructure. If you're already doing patrols with vehicles, you can just equip it on a vehicle itself. Very lightweight, power friendly, low cost, flexible coverage. As I mentioned, fixed LPR cameras capture the choke points, mobile LPR cameras paint the picture or complete the picture itself. So some of the inventory use cases that you are able to use while leveraging mobile LPR allows you to identify scofflaws, red list, stolen vehicles, supporting your local enforcement officers, also being able to identify abandoned or overstayed vehicles. If you have a lot of vehicles parking in your short-term parking over the duration that you actually want them to, you need to understand why. You need to implement different types of things. Maybe it's just as simple as increasing the parking rate so they actually go to the long-term parking where they need to be. It's really important that the people that park in the short-term parking are short-term travelers, because if not, it's just a lot of real estate that is not being used properly. Additionally, occupancy tracking, as I mentioned, lost ticket resolution. What I love is the customer service aspect. Let's say every time I go to an airport and I park there, I take a picture of where I parked. Let's say that you are running behind, you have 15 minutes to board. You're not gonna take a picture of where you parked. You're gonna run, you're gonna get on your flight. When you land back, you don't know where you parked. The good thing about a mobile LPR system is that you can call your parking operator at the airport and say, this is my license plate. They'll let you know which garage, which level, and which row. That makes your life a lot easier as well. And it's going to improve the customer service aspect, and I can guarantee you that person's gonna wanna park there again. Let's take a look at some real world results. Las Vegas Airport, 15 on-foot officers to complete one round. Now they just need 2 vehicles. That's 7 times more efficient. So let's say each vehicle equips 2 people. So now they have 11 people that they can allocate to somewhere else in their parking or different types of operations within their airport. Charlotte Douglas Airport as well. It used to take 2 hours with 4 officers. Now it just takes 30 minutes with 2 units. And then a city in France, one officer would scan 300 license plates a day, and now one officer can scan 1,000 license plates a day. It's really about more operational efficiency. The more patrols you do, the more insights you have, and the better you are in terms of understanding your parking, and you can really further improve everything else. My colleague Mauricio for the enforcement aspect.
Thank you, thank you. So let's go ahead and talk enforcement here. We'll look at the components on the enforcement network. You do have your enforcement hardware, which will be your capture and your display hardware on the vehicle, and all that data then gets transferred over to the software. The software is the brains of the operation. It is responsible for integrating with your payment systems, your scufflaws, your permitting systems, whether it's one or multiple. And this way we can query the databases and reflect whether that person has a paid parking session or a violation. If we do have a violation in place, then we go ahead and integrate with a citation management system where we push the data of the violation to them. And this allows you to enforce it, whether it's managed through a handheld that you print the ticket and you add it to that vehicle, or if you're doing citation by mail, you can just send it to the back office and take care of mailing out the citation later. Look into some of the benefits of LPR enforcement. You have enhancing coverage without adding staff. Guillermo spoke about this a little bit, but you're able to enforce a much larger area without adding staff. And I want to make it clear here that it's not about replacing your staff. It's about being able to enforce more efficiently, cover more ground in a less amount of time. And then we have route optimization. The data coming from the LPR will allow you to do targeted enforcement. This means allowing to deploy your enforcement officers to where the compliance is lowest and enforce properly, not just have people driving around in circles and capturing plates, but being more attentive about where you're enforcing and then what routes you can implement. And then citation by mail. If your country or if you're in the United States, your state allows you to, you can cite by mail. This means officer safety. It increases the officer's safety. The officer no longer needs to get out of the vehicle at all to issue a citation. You can just issue it by mail. This diminishes the time of the officer's safety. Maybe interactions happen where getting a citation is not a fun thing. So if you can diminish that time and then increase the officer's safety, they're also in a vehicle. So if they're in a car, they're a lot safer than issuing citations on foot, and they can do it at different times of the night where it might be a little bit dangerous depending on the zone. And then you have labor optimization, not labor replacement. I do want to make it clear that Mobile LPR is not here to replace labor, but to optimize it. You can use your resources in other areas of the parking department where maybe they need to take care of violations, or maybe they need to take care of customer service focused things instead of being out there in the field and manually capturing those plates. So, and then lastly, and the most important in my opinion, is enforcement drives compliance, and compliance is the goal. I think every agency can agree that compliance is the ultimate goal, is what keeps revenue high and steady, and enforcement allows you to get there. Mobile LPR allows you to be more consistent on your enforcement and more intentional about your enforcement. Let's look at some case studies. These are third-party case studies that you can Google. You can find them anywhere. We're looking at Concord Parking. They transitioned from manual enforcement to mobile LPR. And what this allowed them to do is allowed them to go barrierless. It also allowed them to go into virtual permits instead of manual permits. And they can use LPR, mobile LPR, for other stuff outside of just enforcement. They can do traffic surveys, occupancy, allow them to manage, track the turnover on parkers, and allow them to also make pricing decisions based on compliance and whatnot. They also saw an increase of revenue from $5,000 to $26,000 a month. So as we said, it is because the compliance improved due to targeted enforcement and due to aggressive enforcement. And then we'll look at Taylor University, where they had manual LPR. They weren't covering all the campus, and now they're able to cover 88% of the campus with mobile LPR. They were able to relieve some of the traffic and congestion with the carriers, just eliminating them and adding a mobile LPR unit going there and doing its enforcement. And this had an enforcement increase, speed increase of 4 times, and then significant improvement in permit compliance. As you see, the pattern is that more people are now becoming compliant and the behavior of the parkers change. Let's look at a case study that we did internally. This is more about coverage more than anything, so it can also apply to just mobile LPR in general. We have the town of Hampstead, where they were doing manual enforcement. They were doing actual physical parking decals, and they were only covering 75% of the area that they're managing. With mobile LPR, they're now able to cover the area 2 times, plus doing some security checks. So they were able to implement some additional security within their operations. That now they're able to read 400 plates in 2 hours, and then they increase their parking permit compliance. It's not all cruise control. LPR has its limitations like any other technology out there. There is some obstruction of the weather, some obstruction of the field of view of the camera. If I can't see it, then the camera's not going to be able to see it. So human oversight is always going to remain so important. You got to make sure that your policies are implemented correctly for the workflow, and the operational flow of your parking enforcement can then be smooth and then avoid any of the mistakes happening from the technology or just the limitations of the technology. So what actually determines success? I've worked with many agencies of multiple sizes, from big to small, and what really sets them apart, the successful ones are implementing policies and operational workflows early. And not only are they implementing them early, they're actually monitoring their operational workflow. They're making sure that their enforcement officers know how the technology works, how to work the actual software, but actually incorporate that into their operational workflows, allowing them to be more efficient, allowing them to monitor the data daily or weekly, and then target those enforcements and measure how the patterns are changing, and making sure that that compliance is being increased. And that is their ultimate goal, I believe. Looking into the future of LPR, I have a vision that LPR will then be automated fully. So you'll have an automated system with an autonomous vehicle, and the system would be able to deploy itself, do its rounds without any physical presence within the vehicle. I think the only thing that will change is that the human oversight will not be in the vehicle, no human interaction inside of the vehicle, but they'll be overseeing the system remotely. So this would allow for it to be more efficient. It can also aggregate the data better and make informative decisions for the operators. And then it'll allow you to, increase your compliance, and then relieve some of that stress on your workload on data analysis, and allow you to make more price decisions and informative decisions moving forward. So that is all for us. Hopefully you got to learn a thing or two on mobile LPR, inventory, and how it can benefit you and your operations.